I discovered my parents stole my college fund from my brother's MLM scam. He deserved the money more than you, Dad said. So I sued them and destroyed their retirement. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit! Been lurking on this sub for 3 years but never had a reason to post. But here I am, after I discovered what my parents did with my college fund. Figure some of you dealing with family BS might relate. I, 33 male, have been a union plumber out of the Detroit area. Been doing this for about 10 years now. I pull in around $82,000 a year with overtime and weekend side jobs. I own a 1,400 square foot ranch I bought when I was 30, drive a truck with 45,000 miles on it, have $18,000 in savings, and my credit's solid. I'm not rich, but I handle my business. My older brother Tyler, 39 male, just moved back into our parents' house for the 5th time since high school. Yeah, you read that right. 5th time. Guy's pushing 40 and still sleeping under his 2005 Spider-Man posters. Growing up, different rules applied to me and Tyler. 3 incidents stick out that pretty much sum up the family dynamic. Let me start with the car. Senior year in 2008, I saved up $3,200 from my hardware store job to buy a 1998 Honda with 180,000 miles. Thing was beat to hell, but it ran. Needed new tires, had some rust spots, but it was mine. Worked every weekend for 8 months to afford it. It was a beat-up 1998 Civic with a slipping transmission and a cabin that smelled like a casino carpet, but it was mine. Week after I bought it, transmission started slipping. First gear wouldn't engage properly, and second gear made grinding noises that sounded like metal shavings in a blender. Mechanic said it had cost $1,800 to fix, more than the car was worth. Asked my parents if they could help with repairs since I needed it for work and college applications. You bought it, you fix it, Dad said. Time to learn about responsibility. So I sold it for scrap and went back to bumming rides or taking the bus. Real character building experience. Tyler turned 18 3 months later. Parents surprised him with a 2004 Chevy Cavalier they'd bought from some dealer. 85,000 miles. Clean interior. Recent maintenance. Cost them $8,500. Just handed him the keys at his graduation party like it was nothing. The Cavalier was everything my Civic wasn't. Automatic transmission, working air conditioning, intact bumpers, seats that didn't have cigarette burns. Even had a decent sound system with a CD player that actually worked. Every young man needs reliable transportation, they said. Tyler acted like he'd earned it somehow. The Cavalier lasted Tyler exactly 14 months before he rear-ended someone while texting at a red light. Totaled the car, insurance barely covered half because Tyler had minimum coverage. Their response? Helped him find another used car and co-signed the loan. Meanwhile, I was still taking the bus to my weekend job, saving every dollar for my next car purchase. 40-minute bus ride each way to the hardware store, carrying my work boots in a backpack because the floors were always wet from people tracking in snow and mud. Tyler's college experience was fully catered. They researched schools for him, paid application fees, even hired some consultant to help write his essays. When he got into Oakland Community College, they threw a party and bought him everything. Laptop, desk, bookshelf, mini fridge for his dorm room. Tuition paid in full. Books and supplies covered. Monthly allowance for food and gas. They set up a checking account with $500 monthly deposit so he wouldn't have to work while focusing on his studies. The laptop was a $1,200 MacBook Pro for Tyler's digital media classes. Reality was online poker and Netflix. His dorm room looked like Best Buy. 32-inch TV, PlayStation 3, surround sound. All funded by our parents while his roommate lived in luxury. He lasted 3 semesters, passed maybe half his classes, spent most of his time playing World of Warcraft and skipping lectures. When he finally dropped out in 2007, their response was, he'll find his path. Found out later Tyler had been lying about attending classes for months. Parents thought he was studying while he was actually sleeping until 2 p.m. and playing video games. When professors started calling about excessive absences, Tyler told them he was dealing with family issues that required flexibility. His daily routine was basically sleep until afternoon, grab fast food, play WoW until 4 a.m., repeat. The $500 monthly allowance got spent on takeout and game subscriptions instead of textbooks and school supplies. Guy was living better than most working adults while failing introduction to communications. My turn came 2 years later in 2009. Sat down with them junior year to discuss college plans. We're not paying for college, Dad said straight up. Tyler's experience showed us it's a waste of money unless you're serious about it. I had a 3.4 GPA and already got accepted to Oakland Community College. Been working part-time since sophomore year, never missed work, saved up $2,800 toward tuition, had recommendation letters from teachers, a solid plan for studying business administration, even researched potential internships. Then you can get financial aid. We're not funding another experiment. So I filled out FAFSA paperwork alone, took out loans, worked nights at Lowe's to cover what loans wouldn't, graduated in 2012 with $38,000 in debt, while Tyler slept until noon playing Xbox. Wait, the basement shit was something else. This happened when I was 26. Tyler was 32. I'd been working as an apprentice plumber for 2 years, finally making decent money. Tyler was between jobs again, living in the basement, spending his days applying to marketing positions that never seemed to exist. Came over for Sunday dinner and found Tyler had taken my old work boots. Red Wings I'd saved up for and barely worn. Good leather boots cost $300, and I was protective of my gear. Red Wing Iron Rangers with Vibram soles, waterproof leather, steel shank construction. Bought them after my first real paycheck as an apprentice because you don't mess around with foot protection in the trades. Dude, those are mine. I need them for work tomorrow. Relax, I'm just borrowing them for job interviews. Gotta look professional. Complete bullshit, but whatever. Tyler's idea of professional attire was whatever he found in the laundry pile. Fine, but I need them back tonight. Next morning, boots were still missing. Called Tyler, no answer. Showed up to work in sneakers and caught hell from my foreman about safety violations. OSHA regulations are no joke in construction, and showing up without proper safety equipment can get you sent home without pay. Drove to my parents' house after work. Found Tyler in the basement playing Call of Duty. My boots sitting by the door caked in mud and what looked like dog crap. Lost my mind when I realized what happened. Tyler had worn my steel-toed work boots to some dive bar, probably trying to look like a tough guy. Leather was scuffed, soles were worn down from concrete, and they smelled like cigarettes and spilled drinks. The boots were trashed. Permanent stains on the leather, deep scratches that went through the protective coating, eyelets bent out of shape from improper lacing. $300 worth of quality footwear destroyed in one night of Tyler pretending to be someone he wasn't. At least I'm not crawling around in sewers for a living, Tyler said when I confronted him. At least I'm working instead of mooching off mom and dad. Dad came downstairs and listened to both sides, then delivered his judgment. Marcus, they're just boots. Tyler needed them for job interviews. You should be supporting your brother instead of attacking him. The complete dismissal of my actual career told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in this family. Tyler smirked the whole time like he'd won some contest. Took my boots and left. Didn't come back for Sunday dinners for 6 months. Nobody called to ask why. When I was 15, I started working weekends at a local hardware store. $40 for 8 hours of moving lumber and mixing paint. Saved every penny while Tyler slept until noon playing Grand Theft Auto. Tyler's work history was a masterclass in failure. He lasted 2 months selling used cars before getting fired for insulting customers. Then came a brief stint in insurance. Missed appointments, blamed traffic, showed up 40 minutes late like it was no big deal. After that, 8 months at a Comcast call center, where he got written up for hanging up on people and telling one customer to try turning it off and leaving it off. His final gig was at a warehouse, where he got caught wheeling a stolen office chair into his trunk. Claimed it was back pay. HR called it theft. Between these employment disasters, Tyler would camp out in his childhood room, playing online poker until 4 a.m. and ordering DoorDash on our parents' credit card. Dad called it finding his passion. Mom said everyone matures at different rates. His bedroom was a 32-year-old man cave that looked like a teenager's fantasy. Gaming chair worth more than most people's cars, 3 monitors for his setup, sound system that rattled windows. All bought with birthday money and small loans from mom and dad. The real favoritism shown during college planning. Tyler's community college got fully funded. Tuition, books, gas money, spending cash for food. They even bought him a used Honda Accord so he could commute to classes in style. When he flunked out after completing 3 classes in 2 semesters, they called it valuable life experience. The Honda was actually a nice car. 2005 Accord with leather seats, sunroof, premium sound system. Tyler treated it like garbage, never changed the oil, left trash everywhere, used it for late-night food runs and poker games. Found out later, Tyler had been using the car for side hustles that weren't exactly legal. giving rides to sketchy people for cash, transporting packages without asking questions, basically running errands for guys who couldn't use their own vehicles. Parents never asked why Tyler always had gas money, despite being unemployed. My college journey was student loans and night shifts at Lowe's. Graduated from Oakland Community College in 2012 with a 2-year degree and $38,000 in debt, living on whatever free food I could find. Lowe's night shift was brutal work. Unloading trucks, moving appliances, dealing with contractors who needed materials for early morning jobs. Shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., then I'd drive straight to morning classes, running on energy drinks and willpower. Found a plumbing apprenticeship in 2013 through a guy at Lowe's whose uncle ran a shop. Worked my ass off for 3 years. Got my journeyman license in 2016. Started making real money. Tyler spent that same period trying to sell supplements online for about 3 weeks before giving up. The apprenticeship was old-school blue-collar education. Started at $12 an hour, learning how to sweat copper joints and snake drain lines. By year 3, I was troubleshooting hydronic heating systems and installing commercial water heaters. Real skills that translated to real paychecks. Family dinners were painful exercises in selective attention. They'd ask about my plumbing work like it was cute hobby stuff, then spend 2 hours discussing Tyler's latest get-rich-quick scheme. His ideas never went anywhere, but their enthusiasm never died. Tyler's business ideas were always variations on the same theme. Make money without working. Online dropshipping, cryptocurrency mining, flipping cars he bought at auction. Every scheme required startup capital that mysteriously appeared, and every scheme failed within months. When I bought my house at 30, saved for 3 years, put down 20%, got a good interest rate, Mom's reaction was, "That's nice, honey," before changing the subject. When Tyler announced his supplement business at 33, they threw a celebration dinner and talked about supporting young entrepreneurs. Everything imploded a few months ago when Dad needed help scanning insurance documents for some Medicare thing. Technology confuses both my parents. They still think Facebook is complicated, so I drove over after work with my laptop. Dad had dumped the contents of 3 file cabinets across their dining room table. Total chaos. Insurance papers mixed with tax returns, warranty cards for appliances they'd replaced years ago, random bank statements. Started sorting through the mess to find what actually needed scanning when I found a manila folder labeled Estate Planning Marcus in Mom's handwriting. Figured it was life insurance beneficiary stuff, opened it to check if anything needed updating. Bank statement on top stopped me dead. Marcus Daniel Rodriguez Educational Trust, printed across the header. My full name, my social security number, dated January 2009. Current balance, $47,280. Stared at that number for 10 minutes straight. I had a college fund. Money I'd never seen, never knew existed, never had access to while racking up loan debt. Dug deeper into the folder. Monthly statements going back to 1992 when I was born. Regular deposits, $300 here, $500 there, sometimes $800 around Christmas and birthdays. My grandfather had been feeding this account my entire childhood. The pattern was clear. Grandpa worked at the Ford plant for 30 years, retired in 1997 with a decent pension. Every month he'd deposit money into this trust account. Sometimes it was smaller amounts, but holiday deposits were always bigger. Guy was serious about my education. Grandpa had been disciplined about it too. Never missed a deposit, even during tight months. Found notes in his handwriting calculating compound interest, projecting what the account would be worth by the time I hit college age. The notes were heartbreaking. Grandpa calculating costs for different colleges, researching tuition rates, even factoring in inflation. Guy had mapped out my entire educational future, making sure I'd have options he never had growing up during the Depression. My grandfather, Miguel, worked 30 years on the line at the Ford plant in Dearborn. Retired in '97 with a pension, a beat-up truck, and no tolerance for lazy people. He was the kind of guy who cut his grass at sunrise and sharpened his lawnmower blades by hand. We weren't close in the emotional sense, but I respected him. He saw the world in hard numbers. Time, labor, savings. I think he saw something in me that he didn't see in Tyler. Follow through. He'd show up unannounced and hand me a $20 bill with a line like, "Books cost money. Don't blow this." Turns out, that was him sticking to a plan. In one of the folders, I found a notebook with his handwriting, projections for tuition, inflation, even meal costs. Guy had it calculated down to lunch money and lab fees. He didn't believe in college, but he believed in preparation. He passed in 2008, just months before I graduated high school. I never knew what he left behind. If he saw what my parents did with that trust, he'd probably rise out of the ground and slap all 3 of them. Balance grew steadily through compound interest. By 2008, when Grandpa died of a heart attack, the account had hit $38,000. With continued interest, it was over $42,000 by 2011 when I graduated high school and started community college. Then I found the withdrawal slips that made my blood run cold. Summer 2013, $15,000 withdrawn. Memo line read, Business loan, T. Rodriguez Startup Capital. Fall 2013, $12,000 withdrawn. Additional business funding, T. Rodriguez. Spring 2014, $18,000 withdrawn. Final business disbursement, T. Rodriguez. Dad's signature as trustee on every withdrawal slip. They'd systematically stolen my entire college fund to bankroll Tyler's supplement MLM scam. Everything clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for years. Why I graduated with massive student loan debt while Tyler magically had startup capital for his business. Why my parents acted like college costs were my problem while Tyler got everything handed to him. The supplement business I remembered. Tyler got involved with some MLM selling protein powder and fat burners, rented warehouse space, bought inventory, designed a website, even leased a used BMW for business purposes. Lasted about 6 months before everything fell apart. The BMW lease was the most ridiculous part. Tyler convinced them he needed professional transportation for client meetings and supplier negotiations. In reality, he drove it to McDonald's and used it to pick up online orders. $450 monthly payment for a car he used like a personal taxi. All funded with my college money. Money my grandfather saved for decades working double shifts at the auto plant. Dad walked back into the dining room carrying coffee, saw me holding the bank statements. His face went white like he'd seen a ghost. That's just old paperwork, nothing important, he said, reaching for the folder. I pulled it back. You stole my college fund. Started the usual dance about it being complicated. How they'd plan to pay it back once Tyler's business took off. How it was a family investment that would benefit everyone. Tyler needed startup capital, and the money was just sitting there earning minimal interest. Gathered all the documents and left without another word. Spent that night going through everything twice, making copies, highlighting important details. The trust was crystal clear. Money designated specifically for my educational expenses. Found business paperwork in Tyler's name, proving where every cent went. Incorporation documents for Tyler Rodriguez Nutrition Solutions LLC. Lease agreements for warehouse space in Warren. Inventory receipts for 500 cases of protein powder that never sold. The business plan was typical multi-level marketing garbage. Tyler was going to revolutionize the supplement industry by selling overpriced protein powder with fancy labels. His market research consisted of reading fitness forums and assuming everyone would want to buy from him instead of established companies. My grandfather worked double shifts for 25 years to build that fund. He'd mentioned it once when I was 12, said he was putting money away for my education. I'd forgotten about it. Figured it was just something grandparents say to make kids feel special. Turns out he was dead serious. And my parents handed it all to Tyler for an MLM that never sold a single product outside the family. Monday morning, I was sitting across from attorney Rebecca Walsh in her office downtown. Mid-40s, sharp as hell, came recommended by a guy at work. Her office walls were covered with legal certificates and photos of her with local politicians. Spent an hour walking through the timeline, showing her all the documents. Walsh took notes, asked specific questions about dates and amounts, had me explain the family dynamics. This is textbook theft, she said, leaning back in her leather chair. Your parents were trustees and used funds for completely unauthorized purposes. Clear breach of fiduciary duty under Michigan law. She pulled out a calculator and started running numbers. Original amount plus compound interest over 10 years, plus punitive damages for intentional misconduct. We're probably looking at $75,000 to $85,000 total recovery. Hired her on the spot. $5,000 up front plus 30% of whatever we recovered. Expensive but worth it to make this right. Dad called that afternoon wanting to discuss everything privately, like we could work it out over a beer and pretend it never happened. We're family, Marcus. We should handle this between ourselves. We stopped being family when you decided to steal from me. Tuesday they got served with the lawsuit. Mom called within an hour, completely hysterical about me suing my own parents, like family relationships exempted them from consequences. How could you do this to us? We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. And then you stole my college fund to pay for Tyler's business. Actions have consequences. Tyler called Wednesday. First time we talked in 8 months. Furious about the lawsuit affecting his living situation. That money funded a legitimate business opportunity. It's not like I blew it on cars or vacations. Classic Tyler. Always someone else's fault. Always had excuses. Always the victim. Discovery phase started in November 2023. Walsh subpoenaed bank records, business documents, email communications, text messages. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. Tyler hadn't just been a passive beneficiary who happened to receive stolen money. Email records showed him specifically asking Dad about the education account in early 2013 and whether there was enough money for his business startup. Dad's response: Marcus doesn't know about it and won't need it immediately. We can structure this as loans that get repaid before he needs it for his career. Except I'd already graduated college the year before and was working as an apprentice. They were planning to steal money from an account meant to help with my education and career development. The email thread was damning evidence. Tyler asking about specific amounts, Dad explaining how to withdraw money without triggering bank notifications, both of them discussing how to keep everything secret from me. The MLM business records were pathetic. Tyler burned through $45,000 in 6 months with absolutely nothing to show for it. Product inventory worth $22,000 sitting in our parents' garage until it expired. Marketing materials and website design cost $12,000. Most expensive was the leased BMW 3 Series for business purposes that got repossessed when Tyler couldn't make payments. Different from the Cavalier he'd totaled years earlier, this was pure business stupidity. Tyler had convinced them he needed the car for client meetings, but his client list was basically 3 guys from his old warehouse job who bought protein powder once. The business plan was typical MLM garbage written on napkins and printed on cheap paper. Tyler's financial projections showed him making $200,000 in the first year selling supplements to people he'd meet at gyms and health food stores. Reality was, he sold maybe $500 worth of product total. Most damaging evidence was a text thread from late 2013. Tyler complaining to Dad about cash flow problems. Dad suggesting accessing more education funds if needed. Tyler's response: Are you sure Marcus won't find out? This could get messy if he realizes what we're doing. They knew it was theft. They knew I'd earned that money through my grandfather's sacrifice. Did it anyway because Tyler's comfort mattered more than my future. During depositions, their story kept changing every hour. First, they'd always planned to tell me about the account. Then they forgot about it completely. Then I should have known about it and asked specifically. Tyler's deposition was a complete disaster. Under oath, he admitted knowing the money came from my educational trust and specifically requesting access to it for his business. Walsh asked him about his business experience. Tyler had to admit he'd never successfully run any business, never took business classes, never worked in sales beyond his 2-month car lot disaster. What made you think you could succeed in the supplement industry? I researched the market and saw opportunities for better products. By researched, you mean you read fitness websites? I did comprehensive market analysis. Where is this market analysis? Long pause. I kept most of it in my head. The judge's expression during my testimony made it clear she wasn't impressed with my parents' behavior. When I explained working night shifts at Lowe's to pay for college, while my brother spent my education money on expired protein powder, she looked genuinely disgusted. Defense tried arguing that parents have discretion over family finances, that the money was better invested in a business opportunity than sitting in a low-interest account. Walsh destroyed that argument. The trust documents are explicit. Educational expenses only. This wasn't discretionary spending. It was theft of designated funds. Their lawyer was clearly phoning it in. Objected to basic questions, misfiled paperwork, showed up late to court sessions, even tried arguing that I should have known about the account and asked for access, which made no legal sense whatsoever. The judge asked pointed questions about Tyler's business qualifications and the family's financial planning. When their lawyer couldn't explain why an unproven entrepreneur deserved access to educational funds, the case was basically over. Mr. Rodriguez, did you review your son Tyler's business plan before authorizing these withdrawals? He explained his ideas to us. Was there a written business plan? Not exactly written, but he had it all figured out. Did you consult with any business advisors about the viability of this venture? We trusted Tyler's judgment. Based on what prior business experience? Long pause. He's always been entrepreneurial. Judgment came down in March 2024. $68,000 in restitution plus $15,000 in punitive damages. Total, $83,000. Tyler stormed out of the courtroom muttering about family loyalty and ungrateful brothers. My parents looked completely crushed, like they couldn't believe actions had consequences. Dad approached me in the parking lot afterward. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family over money. I didn't destroy anything. You stole from me and got caught. Winning the lawsuit was just the beginning. They appealed immediately. Typical delay tactic to avoid paying while hoping I'd give up or settle for less. Their appeal was filed by the same incompetent lawyer who'd bungled the original case. Basic procedural errors, missed deadlines, arguments that had already been rejected. Clearly a Hail Mary pass with no chance of success. While waiting for appeals court, Mom started a Facebook martyrdom campaign. Daily posts about ungrateful children who turn on parents over money, how families should stick together through difficulties, how some people value cash more than relationships. The Facebook posts were Oscar-worthy performances, photos of old family vacations, with captions about how money corrupts relationships, inspirational quotes about family loyalty, Bible verses about forgiveness and greed, real melodrama for church friends and distant relatives who didn't know the full story, comments full of support for the poor parents being sued by their greedy son. Tyler joined the pity party with his own social media campaign, posts about how family loyalty means nothing anymore, how some people forget where they came from, how money corrupts relationships. Rich coming from someone who knowingly spent his brother's college fund on protein powder that expired in a storage unit. I stayed quiet for months, taking the high road while they painted me as the villain. Finally got sick of being slandered and posted one response. Photo of the court judgment with caption, "Theft is theft, even when it's family." That ended the social media sympathy tour real quick. Hard to maintain victim status when court documents prove you're a thief. The appeal failed in August 2024. Unanimous decision upholding the original judgment plus additional court costs for filing a frivolous appeal. Total amount owed, $89,000. Appeals court didn't just reject their arguments. They wrote a scathing opinion about wasting judicial resources with frivolous appeals. Basically called them out for filing paperwork they knew had no merit. Dad called for the first time since the trial, wanting to discuss payment arrangements. He suggested $500 monthly payments over 15 years. I laughed out loud. That's 15 years of payments with no guarantee you'll follow through. Absolutely not. Walsh filed for immediate collection the next week, wage garnishment on Dad's pension, asset seizure orders, liens placed on their house, cars, and any other property they owned. Reality hit them like a freight train. Couldn't sell the house with liens attached, paychecks getting garnished, bank accounts frozen except for basic living expenses. Their comfortable retirement became very uncomfortable very quickly. The wage garnishment was brutal but legal. 25% of Dad's pension check went straight to paying his debt. Same percentage from Mom's Social Security. Turned their fixed retirement income into survival mode budgeting. They hired a bankruptcy lawyer, hoping to escape. Case got dismissed in 6 weeks. Turns out you can't discharge debts from theft through bankruptcy court. The bankruptcy hearing was brutal. Their lawyer tried arguing financial hardship, but the judge wasn't sympathetic to people who stole their son's college fund for an MLM scheme. You're asking this court to discharge debt resulting from theft of trust funds? Your Honor, my clients were trying to help their family. By stealing from one son to fund the other son's failed business? Tyler got a job at McDonald's during this period. 39 years old, working alongside teenagers, taking orders and cleaning bathrooms. Reality of minimum wage hit him hard after years of living off our parents' generosity. They liquidated everything over 3 months. House sold under market value because they needed quick cash and couldn't wait for better offers. Dad's vintage motorcycle collection went to dealers who knew they were desperate and offered pennies on the dollar. Dad had 3 motorcycles, a 1987 Harley Sportster, a 1995 Honda Goldwing, and a 2003 Yamaha R6. Combined worth probably $20,000 in normal circumstances, but distressed sales got them maybe $12,000 total. The Harley was Dad's pride and joy. Spent weekends polishing chrome, upgrading exhaust pipes, riding to bike shows. Sold it to a dealer for $4,000 when it was worth at least $8,000. Desperation pricing when you need cash fast. Mom's retirement account got cashed out early with massive tax penalties. Everything they'd saved for 40 years gone to pay for Tyler's failed MLM business. The 401k liquidation was particularly brutal. $40,000 became $28,000 after penalties and taxes. Retirement planning destroyed by their own poor decisions. Full payment hit my account January 15, 2025. $89,000 exactly. Used half the settlement as down payment on a much nicer house across town. 4 bedrooms, 3-car garage, finished basement. Upgraded from my 1,400 square foot ranch to a 2,600 square foot colonial in a better neighborhood. Also bought myself a brand new F-250 work truck. Fully loaded, $65,000 truck I'd always wanted but couldn't justify. Posted photos on social media about how hard work and standing up for yourself eventually pays off. The truck is ridiculous in the best way. Leather seats, navigation, backup camera, towing package rated for 12,000 pounds. More truck than I need, but exactly what I wanted after years of driving used vehicles. Crew cab with enough room for tools, equipment, and materials. Heated seats for cold mornings, premium sound system for long drives to job sites. The kind of truck that announces you've made it in the trades. My parents moved into a cramped two-bedroom apartment in Pontiac. Dad got a part-time job at Home Depot at 73 years old because Social Security wasn't enough to cover their new expenses. Mom's retirement dreams of traveling and visiting grandchildren got replaced with dollar store shopping and cutting coupons for groceries. Tyler moved in with them because he still couldn't afford his own place at 39. Three adults sharing 900 square feet because none of them learned financial responsibility. Perfect irony. They'd all ended up crammed together in poverty, while I finally had the financial freedom they'd stolen from me 12 years earlier. 2 months later, Dad called, more desperate than I'd ever heard him. Their financial situation was worse than I'd realized. Early retirement account withdrawal triggered massive tax implications. IRS wanted $28,000 in penalties and back taxes, 30 days to pay or face asset seizure. They tried setting up payment plans, but couldn't even afford the minimum monthly amount the IRS required. We don't have 28,000. We don't have 3,000. 3 days later, Mom called crying, begging for help with the tax debt. Tyler called next, first time he'd ever asked me for anything directly. Look, I know we have problems, but these are our parents. You can't let them become homeless over money. Watch me. IRS seized their remaining assets when the deadline passed. Took their car, furniture, even Dad's tools from his part-time job. They moved in with Mom's sister in Indiana. 3 grown adults sleeping on couches because they'd finally run out of people to steal from. Been 6 months since I discovered the theft, 4 months since I last spoke to any of them. Life's never been better. Got engaged to Jessica last month, nurse practitioner who moved in 8 months ago. Planning a fall wedding next year. None of them will be invited. Jessica understands completely after hearing the whole story. Jessica heard the whole story on our 3rd date. I didn't sugarcoat anything. Told her how my parents stole from me, how I sued them, how I wasn't planning to let it go. Her response? Good. They had it coming. That's when I knew she was different. Started my own plumbing company 4 months ago. Already have more work than I can handle. Looking at hiring an apprentice next spring. Amazing what you can accomplish without constant family drama and stress. Tyler's still working at McDonald's, making minimum wage. Word through extended family is he's been hitting up relatives for business loans. Nobody's stupid enough to fall for that anymore. My parents are still struggling financially. Dad's health is getting worse from retail work in his 70s. Mom posts on Facebook asking for prayers and financial help from church friends. I don't feel bad about any of it. They had 30 years to treat me fairly and chose not to. Every hardship they're facing is a direct result of their own choices and actions. Best revenge really is living well. I have everything they denied me: financial security, professional respect, a loving relationship with someone who treats me as an equal. Meanwhile, they're living in poverty, dealing with consequences they created. The family dysfunction is behind me now. My future is with Jessica and whatever family we build together. A family where children get treated equally. My parents and Tyler can keep living in the past, making excuses and blaming everyone else for their problems. I'm done caring about their drama. Couple weeks after the settlement hit my account, I drove to Woodlawn Cemetery. Brought coffee, stood by my grandfather's headstone for 15 minutes. Before I left, I said one thing. They lost. Thanks for having my back. Got in the truck and drove home. Didn't look back.